Hey there, travelers. Before we dive into today's story, drop a comment below telling us where you're tuning in from. Now let's begin our journey into the unknown. The phone rang at 3 a.m. and my life ended. Not literally. Not yet. But the person I was, Nathan Shepard, 34, telecommunications technician, divorced, living alone in a cramped Portland apartment. That person died the moment I answered that call. I jolted awake, heart slamming against my ribs like it was trying to break free. The ringtone cut through the darkness of my bedroom, shrill and insistent, pulling me from a dream I couldn't remember. My hand fumbled across the nightstand, knocking over a water glass. I heard it hit the carpet with a dull thump before my fingers found the cold metal of my phone. The screen's harsh blue glow made me squint. Unknown number. Portland area code, just like mine. I work for the phone company. I fix cell towers, troubleshoot network issues, deal with signal problems. When your phone rings at 3 in the morning and you work telecommunications, you answer. It might be an emergency, a tower down, a critical system failure. Hello? My voice came out rough, thick with interrupted sleep. Static crackled on the line, the kind of interference I'd heard 1,000 times in my work. But then, underneath it, there was something else. A sound that made every hair on my body stand up, made my skin prickle with instinctive dread. Gurgling. Wet, desperate gurgling, like someone trying to breathe through water. Please. A woman's voice broke through, fractured by the interference and something else I couldn't identify at first. Then I realized what I was hearing. Water. Not just in the background, but everywhere, surrounding the voice, distorting it. Please help me! I can't breathe. There's water everywhere. It's filling the car. It's so cold. Why is it so cold? I sat up straight, suddenly and completely awake. My heart hammered against my sternum. Ma'am, where are you? Are you in danger? Do you need me to call 911? I need you to find me. Her words came in gasps, each one punctuated by that horrible gurgling sound, like she was speaking from the bottom of a well. My family doesn't know where I am. They're still searching. They've been searching for weeks, but they can't find me. The lake, Crater Lake, near the South Junction where the road curves. We swerved and there was a deer in the headlights, and the guardrail was so old, it just gave way like paper, and we were flying for a second. Just suspended in the air. I could see the stars through the windshield. They were so beautiful. And then we were falling and... Her voice broke, dissolved into choking sounds that made my stomach twist. Okay, stay calm. I'm calling 911 right now. No. Her voice sharpened, cutting through the static. They won't find me. They've been looking, but they're searching in the wrong place. The current must have carried the car after we went in. I'm deeper than they think. So much deeper. Not unless you tell them exactly where. She rattled off coordinates with precision. 42.893 north, minus 122.137 west. The car is 70 feet down, in the dark. It's so dark down here. She choked again, and I heard water sloshing. Tell my mom I'm sorry about the argument. The last thing I said to her was that she should stop treating me like a child. That I was 29 years old, and didn't need her telling me what to do with my life. Those were my last words to her. And now... What's your name? I grabbed a pen from my nightstand, my hand shaking so badly I could barely hold it. Violet. Violet Darren. I teach second grade at Jefferson Elementary in Klamath Falls. I have a cat named Mr. Whiskers who's probably wondering where I am. My best friend Rachel. I just left her house that night. We'd had dinner, celebrated her promotion. She probably feels so guilty. Tell her it wasn't her fault. Tell her not to blame herself. Violet, how long have you been... I stopped. You... Not sure how to finish the question. 3 weeks, or maybe 3 minutes, or 3 years. I don't know anymore. Her voice took on a distant quality, like she was talking to herself more than to me. Time is strange when you're trapped like this, when you're drowning over and over. I keep trying to open the door, but the pressure is too much. The windows won't break. I've tried everything, and the water just keeps rising, or maybe it's been over my head the whole time and I just keep forgetting. A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the temperature of my apartment. Violet. I just want my mom to find me, to be able to bury me properly. She's Catholic. She needs that closure. She needs to know I'm at rest. Please, the coordinates. Did you write them down? I looked at the envelope where I'd scrawled the numbers with trembling hands. My handwriting was barely legible, the numbers crooked and uneven. Yes, 42.893 north, minus 122.137 west. Good, that's good. Relief flooded her voice, mixed with something that sounded like tears. Tell her I love her. Tell her the fight didn't matter. Tell her I know she just wanted what was best for me. Tell her. The gurgling intensified, becoming almost overwhelming. Tell her it was quick, like falling asleep. Tell her I wasn't scared. I will. I promise I'll tell them. Thank you. Thank you so much. I can rest now. I can finally... The line went dead with a soft click that seemed to echo in the silence of my bedroom. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, listening to nothing but my own ragged breathing. My hands trembled. The rational part of my brain, the part that understood signal towers and fiber optics and how phone networks actually worked, screamed that this couldn't be real. It had to be a prank. Some kind of sick joke. Or maybe I was still dreaming, but I could feel the dampness on my carpet where the water glass had spilled. Could see the coordinates scrawled on the envelope in my own handwriting. Could still hear that awful gurgling sound echoing in my memory. I tried calling the number back. The phone rang once, then a recorded message. The number you have dialed is not in service. Please check the number and try again. For a long moment, I just sat there in the darkness, staring at my phone's glowing screen. Then, moving on autopilot, I dialed the Klamath County Sheriff's Department. The dispatcher who answered sounded tired but alert. Sheriff's Department, what's your emergency? I stumbled through my story, saying I'd been hiking near Crater Lake earlier that day and thought I'd seen something in the water near the South Junction. I gave them the coordinates, trying to keep my voice steady. The dispatcher thanked me, said they'd send someone to check it out, though I could hear the skepticism in her tone. What else could I do? After I hung up, I opened my laptop, my hands still shaking slightly. Typed Crater Lake missing person into the search bar. The article loaded, and my blood turned to ice. Violet Darren, 29 years old. Elementary school teacher from Klamath Falls. Missing for 3 weeks after leaving her friend's house near Crater Lake. Last seen driving on Highway 62 around 10 p.m. The article mentioned she'd had an argument with her mother earlier that day about moving to Seattle for a job opportunity. Her mother had told reporters she'd give anything to take back their last conversation. The photo showed a woman with brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. Warm brown eyes, a genuine smile that reached those eyes. She was wearing a University of Oregon sweatshirt and looked like someone you'd trust with your children. Someone kind. Someone who didn't deserve to die alone and scared in a submerged car. Search and rescue had been looking for her vehicle for weeks, but found nothing. The family was offering a $10,000 reward for information. I stared at that photo for a long time, until the laptop screen started to dim. Then I got up, made coffee I didn't drink, and sat at my kitchen table as the first gray light of dawn began to creep through the windows. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that gurgling sound. The phone rang again at 3:47 a.m. the following night. I'd called in sick to work, spent the day in a haze, jumping at every sound, checking news websites obsessively for any update about Crater Lake. There was nothing yet. The sheriff's department would need time to mobilize divers, to verify my tip. I told myself I'd done what I could, that I should try to forget about it, move on. But I couldn't stop thinking about Violet's voice, the way she'd thanked me, the relief when I'd written down the coordinates. I was sitting at my kitchen table, staring at a cup of cold coffee I'd made hours ago and never drunk, when my phone rang. Different number this time, but still a Portland area code. My hand hovered over it, trembling. Every instinct told me not to answer. To throw the phone out the window, to pretend the previous night had never happened. I answered anyway. Fire mission! Fire mission! A man's voice exploded through the speaker, young, absolutely terrified, overlaid with a crackling static that sounded ancient. Not like modern digital interference, but like an old radio transmission, the kind you'd hear in World War II documentaries. This is Baker Company, 2nd Battalion, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment. We're pinned down at Grid Whiskey Echo 73. German forces have us zeroed in. We need artillery support now, goddammit. Behind his voice, I could hear it. The unmistakable sounds of combat. Not movie sound effects. These were real. The deep, earth-shaking boom of artillery shells landing. The sharp crack of rifle fire. Men shouting in German and English. Their voices raw with fear and desperation. And underneath it all, a sound that made my stomach turn. Grown men screaming, crying, calling for their mothers. Wait, slow down. I tried to interrupt, but he couldn't hear me, or wouldn't. They're coming through the trees. Jesus Christ, they're everywhere. Kaufman just took one in the chest. He's choking on his own blood, and I can't help him. Berg got hit in the leg, bones shattered. He's screaming for morphine, but we're out. We're almost out of everything. His voice cracked, oscillating between military discipline and raw panic. This is Private First Class Eddie Lawson, serial number 3675942, requesting immediate artillery barrage on enemy position. Do you copy? Do you copy? Eddie. I said his name without thinking, without knowing how I knew it. Eddie Lawson, listen to me. How do you know my name? Confusion cut through his panic. Who is this? Identify yourself. Are you with Artillery Command? My name is Nathan Shepard. I need you to listen very carefully. What year do you think it is? What year? Are you crazy? It's December 1944. We're in the Ardennes forest, defending Bastogne against the German counteroffensive. They hit us 3 days ago and we're holding the line, but we're outnumbered 5-1. Maybe more. He paused, and I could hear his ragged breathing. Why are you asking me this? Why aren't you sending help? My buddies are dying. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone so tight my knuckles went white. Eddie, the war is over. World War II ended in August 1945. The Allies won. Germany surrendered. You're not in Bastogne anymore. Complete silence. Even the battle sounds stopped abruptly, like someone had hit a mute button on history itself. That's not funny, he said finally, his voice small and lost, stripped of all military bearing. That's not... You can't joke about something like that. My buddies are dying around me. Kaufman. I can see his body right there in the snow, maybe 10 feet away. The snow is red. Did you know that? When enough blood soaks into snow, it turns this awful pink color first, and then red, and then this deep crimson that looks almost black in the shadows. Kaufman's 22 years old, and he's got a girl back home in Nebraska, and he's dead in the snow, and you're telling me it doesn't matter because the war's already over? Eddie. I kept my voice as steady as I could, even though my own hands were shaking. I need you to really look around, not at your memories of the battle. Look around right now. Are you still seeing the forest? The snow? Your friends? A long, heavy pause. I could hear his breathing, fast and shallow. Yes. No. I don't. His voice wavered. It's fading, like a photograph that's been left in the sun too long. The edges are getting blurry. I can still hear the shells, but they're getting farther away, like someone's turning down the volume. The trees are disappearing. What's happening to me? You're remembering. You got stuck in that moment, in that battle. But it's not real anymore. It's over. The battle is over. The war is over. You can let it go now. Am I? He couldn't finish the question. Didn't want to give voice to what he was starting to understand. Yes, I said softly. I think you died that day in Bastogne. I'm sorry, Eddie. I'm so sorry. The silence that followed felt like it had physical weight to it, like something pressing through the phone line and into my kitchen. When he spoke again, his voice had changed completely. The panic was gone. The military discipline had fallen away. What remained sounded young and wondering, and utterly exhausted. I don't feel the cold anymore, he whispered. I've been so cold for... I don't even know how long. My feet. I couldn't feel my feet for days. Trench foot, you know? We didn't have proper boots. They promised us winter gear before we shipped out, but it never came. But now I'm warm. How can I be warm? Because you're not there anymore. You don't have to be there anymore. Kaufman, Berg, Keyes, all the boys from my platoon. Are they... I don't know about all of them specifically, I said honestly. But the war ended. Most of the soldiers came home. They had families, lived long lives, got married, had kids, became grandfathers. The world kept turning, Eddie, and you helped make that possible. You held the line at Bastogne. We held the line, he repeated, like he was testing the words, seeing if they still meant something. Yeah, we did. I remember now. We held until Patton's Third Army broke through the German lines. They called us the battered bastards of Bastogne. It was in all the papers back home. A pause. My ma. Did she know what happened to me? I'd already looked him up while he was talking, pulled up his military record on my laptop. The words on the screen blurred slightly. She knew you died a hero, Eddie. She received your Purple Heart and Bronze Star. The citation said you called in artillery coordinates that saved your entire platoon from being overrun. They awarded it posthumously. His voice cracked. She got my medals? Yes. And Eddie, she never remarried. She kept your room exactly the way you left it. Your baseball glove on the dresser, your model airplanes hanging from the ceiling, everything, until she passed away in 1987. Jesus, the word came out choked. She waited for me that long? All those years? Some love doesn't end just because life does. Can I go to her now? Is she where I'm going? I think so. I hope so. Nathan? He sounded like a kid now, not a soldier. Just a 19-year-old boy from somewhere in America who'd been scared and alone and trapped in the worst moment of his life for 8 decades. Thank you for talking to me. For really listening. I've been stuck in that moment for... Time doesn't work right when you're like this. It's all just one eternal present. That same battle playing over and over and over. But you heard me. You made it real again. And somehow that made it possible to let go. I'm glad I could help. I wasn't scared at the end. You know, when the shell hit. It was quick. I barely felt it. I just remember thinking about my ma's apple pie. She made the best apple pie. Used Granny Smith apples and way too much cinnamon, just the way I liked it. Isn't that strange? The last thing you think about when you're dying isn't the war or the enemy or even God. It's your ma's apple pie. I found myself smiling through tears I hadn't realized were falling. That's not strange at all, Eddie. That's the most human thing I've ever heard. I'm so tired, Nathan. So damn tired. I think I can hear her now. My ma. She's calling me home, saying dinner's ready, that she made apple pie, my favorite. His voice was fading, becoming distant and dreamy. The snow is melting. The guns are quiet. Everything's quiet now. Finally quiet. Then rest, Eddie. You've earned it. You've earned it 1,000 times over. Yeah. The word was barely a whisper, like wind through empty trees. Yeah, I think I will. Goodbye, Nathan Shepard. Thank you. Thank you for being my last conversation. Thank you for letting me finally leave the forest. The line clicked off with a soft finality that felt nothing like a normal disconnection. It felt like a door closing gently, like an ending that was also, somehow, a beginning. I sat there in my kitchen as the sun started to rise, painting everything in shades of gold and pink. My coffee had gone stone cold hours ago. My laptop battery was dying, the screen dimmed to conserve power. But I didn't move. I just sat there, staring at Eddie Lawson's military record on the screen. Private First Class Eddie Lawson, 101st Airborne Division, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment. Killed in action December 22, 1944, during the Siege of Bastogne, Belgium. Bronze Star for valor in combat. The citation mentioned that he died while calling in artillery coordinates under heavy enemy fire, saving the lives of his entire platoon. Posthumously promoted to corporal. He'd been 19 years old. The photo showed a young man in his army uniform, hat tilted slightly crooked, with a grin that was all mischief and hope and innocence. He looked like he should be at a high school dance or playing stickball in some Midwestern street, not dying in a frozen forest, thousands of miles from home. Rest well, Eddie, I whispered to the screen. Go have some of your ma's apple pie. I didn't go to work the next day either, or the day after that. I called my supervisor, mumbled something about the flu, and spent my time sitting at my kitchen table, staring at my phone, waiting for it to ring again. It didn't. By the third evening, I'd almost convinced myself it was over. Some bizarre anomaly in the fabric of reality. A glitch. Two lost souls who'd found my number somehow and then moved on to wherever they were supposed to go. I told myself I could go back to normal now. Back to fixing cell towers and drinking too much coffee and living my quiet, divorced, lonely life. Then, at 11:34 p.m., my phone buzzed. Not a call this time. A text message. Unknown. You heard them. You're the first person in decades who's actually heard them. Thank you for that. My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the keyboard, heart starting to hammer again. Me. Who is this? The response came immediately. Unknown. Someone who understands what you're going through. Be prepared, Nathan. More will come. They've been waiting so long for someone who can truly listen. Me. How do you know my name? Unknown. The same way they found your number. The veil between the living and the dead is thinner for some people than others. You're one of them. You always have been, even if you didn't realize it. The words hit me with unexpected force, triggering something deep in my memory. A sensation of recognition, like hearing a melody you'd forgotten you knew. Like remembering a dream hours after waking. Suddenly, I was 7 years old again. I was sitting in the dusty attic of our house on Maple Street in Eugene, Oregon. Late afternoon sunlight streamed through the small window, catching dust motes that danced in the air. The house smelled like old wood and my mother's lavender sachets and the chocolate chip cookies she'd been baking downstairs. I was holding 2 tin cans connected by a length of white string. My makeshift telephone, my favorite toy. One can press to my ear, the other dangling in the empty air beside me. Can you hear me, Richard? I'd whispered into my can, the metal cool against my lips. Yes. The voice had come through the other can, clear as a bell, even though nobody was holding it. Even though it swayed freely at the end of the string. I can always hear you. Nathan. You're my best friend. My parents had thought it was adorable. Their imaginative little boy with his vivid inner world and his imaginary friend. Mom had smiled indulgently when I insisted on setting a place for Richard at dinner. Dad had laughed when I'd asked if Richard could come on family trips. They'd taken photos of me in the attic, talking earnestly into my tin can telephone, having animated conversations with empty air. Normal kid stuff, Mom had told the neighbors. He'll grow out of it. But Richard hadn't been imaginary. He'd known things. Real things. Things I couldn't possibly have known. He told me about the loose floorboard in the northeast corner of the attic, the one that creaked when you stepped on it. When I'd pulled it up, carefully, so my parents wouldn't hear, I'd found a small metal box underneath. Inside were old photographs. A stern-looking couple in 1940s clothing, a young boy with dark hair and serious eyes, a teenage girl in a high school graduation gown. Richard had warned me the day before our dog Biscuit ran away. He's going to leave tomorrow, Richard had said sadly. When your mom opens the back door to water her garden, he'll see a squirrel and run and won't come back. I'd cried and held Biscuit tight all day, but it had happened exactly as Richard predicted. Richard had described the basement in perfect detail before I'd ever been allowed down there. The water stain on the east wall that looked like a bird with spread wings, the broken chair with one leg shorter than the others that sat in the corner, the old furnace that made clicking sounds when it kicked on. When I'd finally been allowed down to help Dad with the laundry, everything was exactly as Richard had described it. You must have sneaked down here when we weren't looking, Mom had said, impressed by my attention to detail. But I hadn't. I'd been too scared of the basement, had never gone down there alone. Richard had seen those things. Because Richard had lived in that house. Because Richard had died in that house. Oh, God. I whispered to my empty living room in Portland, the memory crystallizing with terrible clarity. Richard Allen. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my laptop, typed 1518 Maple Street, Eugene, Oregon history into the search bar. Property records, tax documents, historical societies, news archives, It took nearly an hour of digging through old databases and digitized newspaper records, but I found it. A small obituary from the Eugene Register Guard, dated November 3, 1952. Richard Allen, age 8, passed away peacefully at home on November 1st after a brief but severe illness. Pneumonia claimed him before medical assistance could arrive in time. He is survived by his loving parents, Walter and Dorothy Allen, and his younger sister Camille, age 6. The family requests privacy during this difficult time. A viewing will be held at Musgrove Family Mortuary on November 5th. Richard was a bright, curious boy who loved trains, building blocks, and making friends wherever he went. He will be deeply and profoundly missed by all who knew him. The address listed was 1518 Maple Street. My house. The house where I'd lived from ages 6 to 11. Where I'd spent countless afternoons in that attic, talking to my imaginary friend. Richard Allen had died 45 years before I was born, and I'd played with him, talked to him, shared secrets with him, been his best friend for 5 years. The obituary included a black and white photograph. A young boy with dark hair combed neatly to one side, wearing a formal button-up shirt that looked uncomfortable. His eyes were serious, almost sad, but there was a hint of something else there too. Hope, maybe. Or just the simple desire to be seen, to be remembered. A boy who'd died struggling to breathe as fluid filled his lungs. Who'd been trapped in that house for decades, alone and forgotten, unable to move on. Until a strange little boy had moved in who could see him, who could hear him, who'd treated him like he was real, because he was real. I didn't know, I whispered to the photograph on my screen, tears blurring my vision. I'm sorry, Richard. I didn't understand what you were. I didn't know you were hurting. I just thought we were friends. We were friends, a voice seemed to whisper in my memory. You saved me, Nathan. You gave me 5 years of not being alone. That was enough. My phone rang. I looked at the screen through my tears. 3 a.m. exactly, the witching hour they called it. The time when the veil between worlds was thinnest. Unknown number. My finger hovered over the answer button. Every rational cell in my body screamed at me to decline it, to turn off the phone, to pretend none of this was happening. But I thought of Violet, trapped in her car at the bottom of Crater Lake. I thought of Eddie, fighting World War II for 80 years. I thought of Richard, alone in that attic for 4 decades until I came along. I answered. Hello, Nathan. The voice was different from all the others. Not desperate like Violet's, not panicked like Eddie's, not friendly like Richard's memory voice. This voice was cold, measured, calculating. It had edges to it, sharp enough to cut. Do you know who I am? No, I managed, my mouth suddenly dry. That's all right. You'll learn soon enough. But right now, I need you to do something for me. Something simple. What? Look behind you. Every muscle in my body locked. The apartment seemed to shrink around me, the walls pressing inward. The air itself felt heavier, thicker, harder to pull into my lungs. What did you say? I said, look behind you, Nathan. The voice remained calm, almost conversational, which made it somehow worse. Turn around. Look at your living room. I'm standing right there, right behind you. I've been here for the last 10 minutes, watching you cry over a dead boy's photograph, watching you remember. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The phone felt like ice against my ear, so cold it burned. I'm using the phone because it's easier for you to process, the voice continued. Less traumatic than direct manifestation. But I'm here, Nathan. Physically here, in your apartment. I've been watching you all evening, watching you research, watching you remember. Turn around and see me. I promise I won't hurt you. Not yet. I can't. Yes, you can. It's simple. Just turn your head. Look at the darkness behind you and know that I'm there, watching, waiting, eager to meet you properly. My body moved before my brain could countermand it. Slowly, every nerve screaming in protest, every instinct howling at me to run, I turned in my chair. The living room stretched out before me in the darkness. My worn couch with its sagging cushions, my coffee table with magazines scattered across its surface, National Geographic, some junk mail, a book about telecommunications I'd been meaning to read. The TV on its stand, the small red standby light blinking steadily. The coat I'd thrown over the back of the couch days ago and kept forgetting to hang up. Nothing else. Nothing moving. Nothing that shouldn't be there. Then the curtains stirred. Just slightly. A gentle movement, as if pushed by a breeze. But my window was closed. I knew it was closed. I'd checked it twice before sitting down to research Richard, the way I always did before settling in for the night. The latches were turned, the glass sealed tight against the October chill. The temperature plummeted. It wasn't gradual. 1 second, the apartment was at its normal, comfortable temperature. The next, my breath misted in front of my face, visible in the darkness. The cold bit into my skin. Sharp, unnatural, wrong on a fundamental level. This wasn't the cold of winter or air conditioning. This was the cold of the grave, of absence, of something that shouldn't exist in the world of the living. The curtains moved again, more insistently this time, as if pushed by invisible hands. "Do you see me?" the voice asked through the phone, and I could hear amusement in it now. Satisfaction, like a cat that had cornered a mouse. "No," I whispered, my teeth starting to chatter. "Good. That's good. You're not ready yet, Nathan. But soon, very soon, you won't need the phone anymore. You'll see us directly. All of us. The desperate and the damned. The lost and the malevolent. The ones who want help and the ones who want to hurt." A pause. "Others will call you now. Many others. Some will need your help to move on, like your friends Violet and Eddie. But some..." The voice dropped lower, became almost intimate. "Some will want to drag you down to where we are. Be very careful which calls you answer, Nathan Shepard. Not all of us are grateful for your gift." The line went dead with a soft click, but the cold remained. The curtains fell still, but the temperature stayed frigid. I sat there, phone in my trembling hand, staring into the darkness of my living room, my breath still misting in the air, knowing with absolute bone-deep certainty that I wasn't alone, that I would never be alone again, that something had noticed me, and whatever it wasn't finished with me yet. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? I sat in my living room with every light in the apartment turned on, phone clutched in my hand, watching the curtains for any sign of movement. The temperature had returned to normal after that call ended, but the memory of that unnatural cold lingered in my bones. Around 5 a.m., I gave up on the pretense of sleep, made coffee with hands that still trembled slightly, checked the news obsessively on my laptop. At 6:47 a.m., I found it. Breakthrough in Crater Lake missing person case. Divers locate vehicle. My heart stopped. The article said that following an anonymous tip with specific coordinates, search and rescue divers had located a vehicle 73 feet below the surface of Crater Lake, approximately 200 yards from where they'd been searching. The car matched the description of Violet Darren's Honda Civic. A body had been recovered. Dental records would be needed for positive identification, but the family had been notified. There was a quote from Violet's mother. "We can finally bring our baby home. Whoever called in those coordinates, thank you. Thank you for giving us the chance to lay her to rest properly. I just wish I could tell her I'm sorry, that our last conversation doesn't matter, that I love her more than anything." I closed my laptop and cried. Just sat there at my kitchen table and cried for a woman I'd never met, but whose last moments I'd shared. For a mother who'd gotten her daughter back but would never get to say the words that mattered. For the impossible, terrible gift I'd apparently been given. My phone rang. I looked at the screen. 9:15 a.m., a normal time, a normal Portland number. For a moment, I considered not answering. But what if it was work? What if it was something mundane and ordinary and real? I answered. "Nathan Shepard?" An older woman's voice, crisp and professional. "Yes?" "My name is Dr. Evelyn Madison. I'm a retired professor of cultural anthropology from the University of Oregon. I'm calling because, well, this is going to sound strange, but I've been monitoring police frequencies and local news, and I noticed the rather remarkable circumstances surrounding the discovery of Violet Darren's vehicle. My blood ran cold. I don't know what you're talking about. You provided exact coordinates to a vehicle that had been missing for 3 weeks, located in a search area that had already been extensively covered. Either you have access to some incredibly sophisticated underwater scanning equipment, which seems unlikely for a telecommunications technician, or... She paused. Or something far more interesting is happening to you. Who are you? Someone who might be able to help you understand what's happening, and more importantly, how to protect yourself. Because Nathan, if you've started receiving calls from the dead, you're in terrible danger. I should have hung up. Every rational instinct told me this was crazy, that I should just deny everything and pretend I was a normal person living a normal life. Instead, I heard myself say, "How did you find me?" I've been studying paranormal phenomena for 40 years. I know how to recognize the signs when someone becomes a conduit, the precise coordinates, the timing, the fact that you called it in anonymously at 4 a.m. You're not the first person this has happened to, Nathan. But you might be the first one in this area in quite some time. Her voice softened. Can we meet? There are things you need to know. Things that might keep you alive. We met at a coffee shop in downtown Portland 2 hours later. Dr. Evelyn Madison was in her late 60s, with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun and sharp gray eyes that seemed to look right through me. She wore a cardigan over a simple blouse and carried a worn leather messenger bag that had seen better days. She ordered chamomile tea. I got coffee I didn't drink. "Tell me what's been happening," she said once we were seated in a back corner, away from other customers. So I did. Violet, Eddie, Richard, the cold voice that had told me to turn around. All of it spilled out in a rush, and once I started talking, I couldn't stop. She listened without interrupting, taking occasional notes in a small leather journal. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "You're what we call a thin person," she said finally. "Someone whose connection to the spirit world is more permeable than normal. It's rare, but not unheard of. Usually it manifests in childhood, which explains your experience with Richard Allen. But sometimes trauma or major life changes can reopen those channels in adulthood. My divorce," I said quietly. "Possibly. Or simply the isolation, the vulnerability. Spirits are drawn to thin people the way moths are drawn to flames. You become a beacon in the darkness." She took a sip of her tea. "The good news is that you have a genuine gift for helping trapped souls move on. Both Violet and Eddie found peace because of you. And the bad news? The bad news is that you've made yourself visible to things that aren't interested in moving on. Things that feed on trapped souls. And by releasing their prey, you've angered them." I thought of that cold voice, the malicious amusement in it. "What do I do?" You learn, you protect yourself, and you decide whether you're going to close yourself off completely or accept this burden and try to help as many souls as you can before. She trailed off. Before what? Before they come for you in earnest. Over the next 3 days, Dr. Evelyn Madison became my teacher. We met every afternoon in her cluttered home office in Eugene, surrounded by books on occultism, folklore, and paranormal research. She taught me about protective rituals, about salt circles and iron nails and specific words in Latin and Hebrew that could create barriers against malevolent entities. She told me about the different types of spirits I might encounter. The confused dead who didn't know they'd passed, the trapped dead who knew but couldn't move on, and the malevolent dead, souls so twisted by their actions in life that death had made them into something monstrous. "The ones who speak in tongues," she warned, "never engage with them directly. They're not trying to cross over, they're trying to drag you back with them." My phone rang constantly during those 3 days. Dozens of calls at all hours, but especially between midnight and 3 a.m. Most I let go to voicemail. The messages were disturbing. Some were desperate pleas for help. Others were threats. A few were just sounds, crying, screaming, whispered words in languages I didn't recognize. But there was one call I answered. It came at 2:47 a.m. on the 4th night. I was exhausted, had barely slept in days, but something about this call felt different, gentler. Hello? I answered, my voice rough. Is someone there? A small voice. A child. I can't find my mommy. It's dark and I'm scared and I can't find her. My heart clenched. Hey, sweetheart. What's your name? Sarah. Sarah Baldwin. I'm 9 years old. Or, I was 9. I don't remember exactly. A pause. Am I dead? I closed my eyes. Yes, honey. I think you are. She started crying. Not the theatrical wailing of a child throwing a tantrum, but the quiet, hopeless sobbing of someone who's been scared for a very long time. Where am I? I've been in this hospital room forever. There was a fire. I remember the fire, and then the smoke. And then I woke up here and the doctors and nurses walk right past me like I'm not even there. What hospital, Sarah? Emmanuel. In Portland. Room 412. I've been here so long. Please, I just want to find my mommy. I looked up Emmanuel Hospital, found an article from 2003, a tragic fire in the pediatric wing. Several children injured. One fatality. Sarah Baldwin, age 9, died from smoke inhalation despite the best efforts of staff. 22 years ago. Sarah, listen to me very carefully. Your mommy isn't at the hospital anymore. You're not really at the hospital anymore. You got stuck in that moment, in that place, but it's time to go now. Go where? Somewhere better. Somewhere warm and safe where people can see you. Where your mommy is waiting. She is? Hope crept into her voice. Yes, but you have to let go of the hospital first. Can you do that for me? Dr. Evelyn had taught me a simple ritual for helping peaceful spirits cross over. Words of release, of permission, of blessing. I spoke them now, softly, while Sarah listened. I can see light, she whispered. There's a door, and I can hear... Is that my mommy calling me? Yes. Go to her, Sarah. It's okay now. Thank you, mister. Thank you for helping me find her. The line went dead, and I knew, just knew, that Sarah Baldwin was finally at peace. I sat there in the darkness of my apartment, phone in hand, feeling something like satisfaction, like purpose. I'd helped her. After 22 years of being trapped and alone and scared, I'd helped her find her way home. Then every light in my apartment went out. Not just my lights, the street lights outside, the glow from neighboring apartments, everything. The darkness was absolute, and in that darkness, I heard them. Whispers, dozens of voices, maybe hundreds, all speaking at once in a discordant chorus that made my head ache. Some spoke English, some spoke languages I'd never heard, some just made sounds, growls and hisses and wet clicking noises that shouldn't come from human throats. The temperature plummeted again. My breath misted in the pitch darkness. Something moved in my living room. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. A presence, heavy and malevolent, pushing against the air itself. Then the voices coalesced into one. Deep, ancient, furious. You shouldn't have done that. It wasn't coming through my phone. It was coming from everywhere at once. From the walls, from the floor, from the air itself. Sarah was ours. She'd been feeding us her fear for decades. Beautiful, pure, childish fear, and you just took her away. She was suffering, I managed, my voice shaking. She deserved peace. Deserved? The voice laughed, and the sound made my teeth ache. You think death is about what people deserve? Oh, Nathan, you have so much to learn. More presences manifested in the darkness. I could feel them surrounding me, circling like predators. Cold spots moving through the room, accompanied by sounds, breathing, scraping, the rustle of movement. We know what you are now, the voice continued. A shepherd of souls. How quaint. How noble. But you're in our territory, little shepherd, and we've been here much longer than you. We've cultivated our garden for centuries. The trapped, the suffering, the desperate. They're ours, and we don't appreciate you stealing from us. My phone rang. The screen's glow provided the only light in the pitch-black apartment. I looked at it with trembling hands. Unknown number. Answer it, the voice commanded. It's someone who wants to speak with you. Someone who's very interested in meeting you properly. I didn't want to answer. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to get out of the apartment, to find somewhere bright and crowded and safe, but I was frozen, paralyzed by the presence of whatever was in my living room. I answered, "Hello, Nathan." This voice was different from the booming one that had filled my apartment. This one was smooth, cultured, with just a hint of an accent I couldn't quite place. "My name is Father Chris Marshall. Well, that was my name in life. Now I'm something else." "What do you want?" "To introduce myself, to warn you, and to make you an offer." He paused, and I could hear something in the background of his call, screaming, distant but constant. "You've been interfering with the natural order, Nathan, helping souls move on. Very noble, very foolish. They were suffering. Yes, and their suffering sustained us. Do you have any idea what happens to certain souls after death? The ones who committed terrible sins? The ones who hurt others? We don't just disappear, Nathan. We become something different. Something that needs to feed. You're feeding on trapped souls? We cultivate them, tend them, keep them in their moments of greatest fear and pain so we can sustain ourselves. It's not pleasant, but it's necessary. And you've been releasing our livestock." His voice changed, became harder. The cultured facade slipped, revealing something cold and vicious underneath. I was a priest, in Salem, Massachusetts in the 1970s. I did terrible things. Things I told myself were for the greater good, for the church, for God. I abused children under my care. I destroyed families. I covered up crimes. And when I died, when I finally faced judgment, I found myself here, in this place between places, unable to move on, unable to find peace. So I adapted. The screaming in the background grew louder. "These are the souls I keep," Father Chris Marshall continued. "My collection. People who trusted me. Children who believed I was good. They scream for me now. They feed me. And I've been doing this for 50 years. Nathan, 50 years of perfecting my craft. And then you come along and start disrupting everything." "You're a monster," I whispered. "I was a monster in life. Death just made it official." He laughed, and the sound was like breaking glass. "But here's my offer. Stop. Stop answering calls. Stop helping souls cross over. Close yourself off and go back to your mundane little life. Do that, and we'll leave you alone. And if I don't, then we'll drag you down to where we are. We'll trap your soul in your own personal hell and feed on you for eternity. We'll make you one of us, a thing that exists only to suffer and inflict suffering. We'll break you, Nathan Shepard, and it will be exquisite." The line went dead. The lights came back on all at once, so suddenly it hurt my eyes. The presences in my apartment vanished, leaving only the lingering smell of rot and the bitter cold. I sat there on my couch, shaking, phone still pressed to my ear. Dr. Evelyn had warned me. But hearing about malevolent entities and actually encountering one, encountering dozens of them, were very different things. My phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Evelyn. "Are you all right?" I felt a disturbance. Something manifested. Me. They came for me. Multiple entities. Someone who called himself Father Chris Marshall. Her response came immediately. "Get out of your apartment now. Come to my house. Don't stop for anything. Move." But before I could stand up, before I could grab my keys, my phone rang again. Another unknown number. I knew I shouldn't answer. Knew it was probably another threat, another malevolent spirit trying to frighten me into submission. But what if it wasn't? What if it was someone like Sarah, or Violet, or Eddie? Someone who desperately needed help. I thought about Father Chris Marshall's offer. Stop helping. Close myself off. Go back to normal. I thought about Sarah's voice when she'd heard her mother calling. The relief in Eddie's voice when he'd realized the war was over. The peace in Violet's tone when she'd known her family would find her. I thought about Richard Allen, trapped in that house for 40 years, until a child came along who could see him. I looked at the ringing phone and made my decision. I answered. "Hello," I said, my voice steady despite my trembling hands. "My name is Nathan. Tell me what happened." And on the other end of the line, someone began to speak. The war had just begun. The voice on the other end was calm. too calm. My name is Robert Dorman. People called me Bobby. I was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam. Huey UH-1. We went down in the jungle near Khe Sanh in 1968. My crew. I can't find my crew. I've been searching for 57 years. I grabbed a pen, my hand still shaking from the encounter with Father Chris Marshall. Bobby, tell me what you remember. We were extracting wounded Marines, taking heavy fire. The rotor took an RPG and we just dropped. Like a stone. I remember the jungle rushing up at us, the screaming of metal, the impact, and then his voice wavered. And then I was alone. My co-pilot Crof, door gunner Berg, crew chief O'Brien, they were all gone. Just gone. I've been walking through this jungle for decades calling their names, but I can't find them. I could hear it behind his voice, the ambient sounds of a jungle, birds, insects, the distant thump of helicopter rotors. Bobby, I need to ask you something. Do you know you're dead? A long pause. Yeah, I figured that out eventually. Took me a while, but I'm not stupid. The question is, why am I still here? Why can't I find my boys? Because you're looking in the wrong place. Your crew survived, Bobby. What? I was already searching on my laptop, fingers flying over the keys. Vietnam helicopter crash, Khe Sanh, 1968, Robert Dorman. The results loaded. Captain Robert Bobby Dorman, killed in action March 15, 1968, when his Huey was shot down during a medical evacuation mission. His sacrifice allowed 4 wounded Marines to be rescued by the following aircraft. His crew, co-pilot James Crof, door gunner Carl Mick, and crew chief Patrick O'Brien, all survived with injuries. I read him the article. Told him about how Crof had become a commercial pilot and retired in Florida. How Mick had opened a restaurant in San Diego and raised 5 children. How O'Brien had become a helicopter mechanic and taught flight school for 30 years. They lived, Bobby whispered. They all lived? They lived because of you. You kept that Huey steady long enough for them to bail out before impact. The citation for your Distinguished Flying Cross says you stayed at the controls while your crew evacuated, even though you could have jumped. You saved them, Bobby. He was crying now. I could hear it. Deep, wrenching sobs of relief and grief and joy all mixed together. I thought I'd failed them. I thought they were lost in that jungle somewhere calling for me and I couldn't find them. I've been searching for so long. You didn't fail them. You saved them. And they went on to live full, beautiful lives because of your sacrifice. It's time to stop searching. Bobby, your mission is complete. Can I go now? Can I finally leave this jungle? Yes. You've earned your rest 1,000 times over. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you for telling me, for letting me know they made it. His voice was fading, becoming distant. I can see light now, and I think Crof is calling me. Says he's got a cold beer waiting. Says O'Brien wants to argue about engine specs. Says Mick has enough tamales to feed an army. I smiled through my own tears. Then go to them, Bobby. Go home. Roger that. Dorman out. The line went silent, and I knew another soul had found peace. But there was no time to rest. My apartment had become a battleground. Every night, the attacks intensified. Objects would fly across rooms. Shadows moved independently of any light source. The temperature would plummet without warning. And the voices, constant, invasive, threatening, whispered from every dark corner. Dr. Evelyn came to my apartment the next day, carrying bags full of supplies, salt, iron nails, bundles of sage, small mirrors, candles made from specific materials I'd never heard of. We're warding this place, she announced, her gray eyes fierce with determination. Creating a sanctuary. They can still call you, but they can't manifest here. Not without your explicit permission. We spent hours working, drawing salt lines at every threshold, placing iron nails at precise points around the apartment, burning sage until the smoke made my eyes water. She taught me words in Latin and Hebrew, phrases of protection and binding. You need to understand something, Nathan, she said as we worked. What you're doing, helping trapped souls, it's important, sacred even, but it comes at a cost. These entities, these things that feed on suffering, they've existed for a very long time, They're not going to give up just because you freed a few souls. I know. Do you? She stopped what she was doing and looked at me directly. My husband was like you, a thin person, a conduit. He helped hundreds of souls cross over in his lifetime. But eventually, they got to him, possessed him, used him as a gateway to bring something through, something old and terrible. I had to. Her voice broke. I had to watch him die, had to help perform an exorcism that destroyed him. That was 30 years ago, and I still have nightmares. Then why are you helping me? Because someone has to. Because souls like Violet and Eddie and Sarah and Bobby deserve peace. And because maybe, just maybe, you'll succeed where my husband failed. She squeezed my shoulder gently. You're stronger than you know, Nathan, but you need to be smart. Don't engage with Father Chris Marshall directly. Don't let him bait you into a confrontation. But Father Chris Marshall had other plans. He started calling every night at exactly 3:13 a.m. Never any earlier, never any later. Each call was the same, that smooth, cultured voice telling me stories. Stories about the children he'd hurt, the families he'd destroyed, the decades he'd spent perfecting his cruelty. You can't save them all, he'd say. I have hundreds of souls in my collection, thousands maybe, all trapped in their worst moments, feeding me with their endless suffering. And even if you somehow manage to free them all, there are others like me, hundreds of us. We're organized, Nathan. We're legion. You're just one man with a gift you barely understand. I tried not to answer. Let his calls go to voicemail, but he was in my head now, his voice echoing in my thoughts even when the phone was silent. Other souls kept calling, though. Desperate voices seeking help. A firefighter who died in the 9/11 attacks and had been trapped in that moment of horror for 23 years. A teenage girl who'd been murdered in the 1990s and couldn't move on until someone acknowledged what had happened to her. An elderly veteran from the Gulf War whose PTSD had followed him beyond death. I helped them all. Performed the rituals Dr. Evelyn had taught me. Spoke the words of release. Bore witness to their suffering, and gave them permission to let go. And with each soul I freed, Father Chris Marshall's rage grew. You're making this personal, he told me one night, his cultured mask finally cracking completely. Fine. You want to play shepherd? Let's see how you handle wolves. The attacks became physical. Scratches appeared on my arms in the night. Objects would fly at my head. Once, I woke up to find myself being strangled by invisible hands, the warding marks on my walls glowing faintly as they held back something that desperately wanted to kill me. Dr. Evelyn taught me defensive rituals, ways to banish malevolent presences, but it was like trying to bail water from a sinking ship. The attacks just kept coming, kept escalating. Then, one night at 3:00 a.m., my phone rang with a number I recognized. The same number from that first night. The cold voice that had told me to turn around. I answered. Hello, Nathan. But the voice had changed. It was warmer now, familiar. It's me, Richard. Richard? My heart leaped. Is it really you? Yes and no. The voice shifted, became more complex, like multiple people speaking in harmony. I'm Richard Allen, the boy you befriended. But I'm also something more now. When you helped me cross over all those years ago, I didn't just disappear. I evolved, became something that exists between worlds. A guardian of sorts. I don't understand. You saved me, Nathan. Gave me 5 years of friendship and peace when I'd been alone and scared for decades. That kindness changed me, made me strong enough to become what I am now. And I've been watching over you ever since, protecting you where I could, guiding you. I'm the one who first opened your channels again after your divorce, who made sure Violet and Eddie could reach you. You did this to me? I didn't know whether to be grateful or angry. I gave you back what you'd lost, what you'd suppressed. You were always meant to be a bridge, Nathan, a shepherd of souls. I just reminded you. The warmth in his voice deepened. But now you're in danger. Real danger. Father Chris Marshall isn't just threatening you. He's planning something. He's gathering other malevolent entities. They're going to try to break through your wards and drag you to their realm. When? Tonight. Soon. They're circling your apartment right now, testing your defenses. Dr. Evelyn's protections are strong, but they won't hold against a coordinated assault. What do I do? You fight. You confront Father Chris Marshall directly and break his hold on the souls he's trapped. Free his collection, and you'll weaken him enough that I can help you banish him permanently. He said he has hundreds of souls. How am I supposed to free them all? You don't free them individually. You break the source of his power, his connection to his own death, his own moment of judgment that he's been avoiding for 50 years. Make him face what he did. Make him accept his crimes, and his collection will shatter. The lights in my apartment flickered. He's coming, Richard said urgently. Remember, you're not alone. I'll be with you. And Nathan? Thank you. For everything. For being my friend all those years ago. For becoming the person you were meant to be. The line went dead. The temperature plummeted. The lights went out. And in the darkness, I heard Father Chris Marshall's voice. Not through the phone this time, but echoing through my apartment itself. Hello, Nathan. Let's end this. Shadows coalesced in front of me, forming into a vague humanoid shape. I couldn't see details, but I could feel the malevolence radiating from it. You've been a thorn in my side, Father Chris Marshall said, freeing my carefully curated souls, disrupting decades of work. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? More shapes manifested around him, dozens of them, filling my apartment with writhing darkness and the stench of decay. My collection, he said proudly. The souls I've kept in torment. They're mine, Nathan. And soon, you'll be too. But I could hear them now. Not the malevolent entities, but the souls they held captive. Hundreds of voices crying out in pain and fear and desperate hope. Dr. Evelyn's rituals had prepared me for this. I knew the words, knew the gestures. But more importantly, I understood now what Richard had meant. Father Chris Marshall's power came from one source, his refusal to face his own judgment, his denial of what he'd done, his desperate need to avoid accountability by feeding on others. I looked at the shadow shape that had once been a priest. Tell me about them, I said. What? The children you hurt, the families you destroyed. Tell me their names. Tell me what you did. I don't have to justify myself to you, he snarled. Yes, you do. I took a step forward, and the salt lines beneath my feet glowed with pale blue light. You've spent 50 years avoiding this, avoiding your judgment, avoiding your guilt. You've hidden behind the souls you torture, fed on their pain to avoid your own. But I see you, Father Chris Marshall. I see what you are, and I'm going to make you remember. I started speaking names. I'd researched him after his first call, found articles about the church scandal in Salem, the investigation that came too late, the victims who'd never gotten justice. Timothy Morgan, age 7. You abused him for 3 years. Stop, Father Chris Marshall said, his voice losing its smooth composure. Becca Riz, age 9. She tried to tell her parents what you were doing, but you convinced them she was lying. I said stop. Roger Burns, age 6. He took his own life at age 15 because of what you did to him. With each name, the shadow shape flickered and wavered. The trapped souls around him began to glow faintly, like stars coming out at dusk. No, no, no! Father Chris Marshall's voice rose to a shriek. You can't do this! They're mine. I need them. You don't need them. You just use them to avoid facing yourself. But I'm making you face it now. Every child, every family, every life you destroyed. Look at what you did. Accept it. Own it. The trapped souls were glowing brighter now, breaking free from whatever held them. One by one they rose up, no longer feeding his power but draining it away. I was sick, Father Chris Marshall screamed. I couldn't help it. The church should have stopped me. It's their fault, not mine. It's your fault. My voice was steady, firm. You made the choices. You hurt those children. And now finally you're going to answer for it. Richard's presence manifested beside me. Not fully visible, but I could feel him there, warm and supportive and strong. Together we spoke the words of binding and judgment. Not to trap Father Chris Marshall, but to break the chains he'd forged himself, to force him to face the thing he'd been running from for 5 decades. He screamed. The sound was inhuman, filled with rage and terror, and finally, understanding. The shadow shape began to dissolve, pulled downward by something far more powerful than any ritual I could perform. His judgment had finally come. The trapped souls swirled around my apartment like a gentle snowstorm, glowing with soft golden light. I could feel their gratitude, their relief, their joy at finally being free. One by one, they faded away, moving on to wherever souls were meant to go. The last one lingered for just a moment, a small child's form, barely visible. "Thank you," a whisper in my mind. Then he was gone too. The lights came back on. The temperature returned to normal. Richard's presence faded, but I felt a gentle warmth, like a hand on my shoulder. "You did it," his voice whispered. "You actually did it." I collapsed onto my couch, exhausted beyond measure. My phone rang. "Dr. Evelyn." "Nathan? Are you okay? The disturbance just vanished." "What happened?" I confronted him. "Father Chris Marshall. Richard helped me. It's over." "Thank God." Relief flooded her voice. "I'm coming over. Don't move." But even as she spoke, my phone buzzed with another incoming call. Unknown number. I stared at it for a long moment, then smiled tiredly and answered. "Hello. My name is Nathan. Tell me what happened." 6 months later, I was still answering calls. But things had changed. My apartment was now a sanctuary, fully warded, protected, a safe space where souls could reach me but malevolent entities couldn't manifest without my permission. Dr. Evelyn visited regularly, bringing new research, new rituals, new protection methods. I'd quit my job at the phone company. I didn't need it anymore. Several families whose missing loved ones I'd helped find had offered rewards. I'd accepted, not because I wanted the money, but because I needed the freedom to do this work full-time. I'd become what Richard called me, a shepherd of souls, a bridge between worlds, someone who listened when no one else could. The calls still came. Every night, usually around 3 a.m., my phone would ring. Sometimes it was trapped souls seeking help. Sometimes it was confused dead who didn't understand what had happened to them. And yes, sometimes it was still malevolent entities, testing my defenses, looking for weaknesses. But I'd learned, grown stronger, wiser. I worked with police departments now, helping solve cold cases when the deceased could provide information. I'd helped locate missing persons, brought closure to grieving families, freed hundreds of souls from their trapped states. It wasn't an easy life. I slept poorly, rarely ate proper meals, and had almost no social life. My ex-wife called once, asking if I was okay, if I'd had some kind of breakdown. I didn't know how to explain what I'd become. But it was my life now, my purpose, my burden, and my gift. Tonight, sitting at my kitchen table at 2:47 a.m., coffee growing cold beside me, I waited for the phone to ring. And when it did, when that unknown number lit up my screen, I answered without hesitation. "Hello," I said, my voice steady and calm. "My name is Nathan Shepard. I'm listening. Tell me your story." On the other end of the line, someone began to speak. Another lost soul, another story that needed to be heard, another person who needed help finding their way home, and I would help them. Just as I'd helped Violet and Eddie and Sarah and Bobby and hundreds of others, because this was what I did now. This was what I was meant to do. I was a keeper of souls, a shepherd in the darkness, a bridge between worlds, and I would never stop listening. The war wasn't over. It would probably never be truly over. There would always be trapped souls needing help. Always be malevolent entities trying to stop me. Always be more voices crying out in the darkness. But I was ready. Richard had said I was stronger than I knew. Dr. Evelyn had taught me how to protect myself. The souls I'd helped had given me purpose. And somewhere, in that space between life and death, I knew they were watching over me. Violet and Eddie and Sarah and Bobby and all the others. A chorus of grateful spirits, standing guard over the man who'd helped them find peace. I took a sip of cold coffee and listened to the voice on the phone, a construction worker who died in an accident in 2019 and had been trapped in his last moment for 5 years, and I began the work of setting him free. Outside my window, dawn was still hours away. But I didn't mind the darkness anymore. The darkness was where I worked now. The darkness was where the lost souls waited. The darkness was where I was needed most, and in the darkness, I would be their light.